Good afternoon and welcome to another day. Today is Wednesday. What am I up to here? There we go. September 30th. Tomorrow starts a new month of October. Today is the 12th day of the month of Tishrei. As we get closer to the holiday of Sukkot, today we'll discuss and begin discussing and continue discussing for the next few days about the holiday of Sukkot. The holiday of Sukkot takes us back to when the Jewish people left Egypt. God protected them with the clouds of glory. Therefore, we are commanded today to sit in a sukkah, a temporary hut, and thereby remember the clouds of glory that protected the Jewish people of all different types of things and ailments in the desert. It reminds us of the time where God protected the Jewish people and brought them finally to the Holy Land and gave them everything they needed. It is also a symbolism of unity. But here's an interesting episode that happened in history. When the Jewish people finally returned to the land of Israel after being 70 years in exile. And the Talmud tells us about the first Tishrei, the first holidays celebration celebrated once the Jewish people came back, which is told about it in the book of Nehemiah, where the prophet describes of how the Jewish people celebrated Sukkot that very first year. And the prophet explains and says, after 70 years being in exile, thousands of Jews come back to the land of Egypt under the leadership of Ezra and Nehemiah. And that first Rosh Hashanah, Ezra gathers all the Jewish people together. As you can imagine, the joy that was there by the very fact that they were able to celebrate and be back in the Holy Land of Israel after being away for 70 years. And they were amongst all the nations of the world in Persia and being persecuted or whatever it may be. And he reads them from the Torah and explains to them the importance of keeping to the laws, that they don't end up again mixed up with the rest of the nations as well. Nehemiah then continues in the prophecy and says in the book of Nehemiah, and they found it was written, as God commanded the Jewish people, that they should sit in the Sukkot in the 7th month. And that's exactly what all the Jewish people did. They sat together and celebrated Sukkot, which was never done from the time of Joshua when the Jews entered the land of Israel. Now, this is a crazy statement. What does this mean? That the Jewish people returning to Israel after 70 years in exile was the first time that they celebrated Sukkot in the land of Israel since the time of Joshua. Joshua was over 1,000 years ago. That means David, Solomon, King Saul, and all the great leaders didn't celebrate Sukkot. How can that be? A commandment which is clearly stated in the Torah that they didn't celebrate for 1,000 years. Joshua, Samson, Samuel, Devorah, all the great people, they didn't celebrate Sukkot. What's the teaching of Nehemiah telling us? I heard an interesting story about a very famous, I'm sure you heard of him, a criminal lawyer by the name of Ben Brafman. Says the story. He, I'm sure you know, is a celebrity lawyer who represents many different shady type of characters. And one of the people that he represented and is a lawyer for was somebody by the name of Puff Diddy, a rapper. And this rapper, when he approached Ben Brafman to help him out in his situation, Ben Brafman told him, you have to know that I'll tell you, I'll take your case. However, I have one condition. And that condition is that I don't answer my phone on Shabbos. So if you think that you're going to be able to get to me at any single moment, you should know that I don't answer. There's 24 hours. I'm not going to answer my phone. The system that he has is that you can send a fax. The person brings him the fax. If it's urgent, he then responds. If it's not life-threatening, he's not going to respond. This rapper was upset. He says, what do you mean? I am a person that everybody has to be at my tiptoes, at my fingers when I snap. If you're not going to be there for me, there's no such thing 24 hours you can't be there for me. You have to be there for me all the time. Mr. Brafman told him, this is the way it works. You want me to be your lawyer? This is what you're going to have to do to sign on. If not, go take your business someplace else. Being that Mr. Brafman is the experienced, well-seasoned criminal lawyer that he is, Ms. Puff Diddy signed the contract. One Shabbos, Friday night, Ben Brafman sitting at home with his family enjoying the Shabbos meal, and all of a sudden his phone begins to ring. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Endless, continuously disturbances of the phone ringing. But Mr. Brafman stuck to his guns. He does not pick up the phone on Shabbos. He was probably thinking that it's the rapper because it was his first weekend and he doesn't understand that not everybody's running after him and not going to listen to him right away. And still in all, whatever it took, he said, I'm not answering. Too bad. I serve God, and I serve God before I serve anybody else. After Shabbos, the phone rings again. This time he picks up. And at this time it was, of course, the rapper. And he tells him, sorry, I didn't pick up the phone last night, but as you know, we signed a contract that I will not pick up the phone on Shabbos. So what is it that I can help you? In fact, the rapper tells him, you don't have to be sorry because of you, I made $10,000. He says, what do you mean? He says, well, we were talking about with my friends that I got this new Jewish lawyer, that he won't pick up the phone for 24 hours. And all my friends said, what, in today's day and age, somebody that doesn't pick up the phone for 24 hours doesn't exist such a thing. And I made a deal with them. I said, you know what? I make a bet. We'll try calling him not once, not twice, but 10 times. And let's see if he picks up the phone. You didn't pick up the phone. I won the bet. I made $10,000. One of the biggest questions that people ask today is, how do I get fulfillment? We live in such a crazy world with so many things happening. How do I feel happy? How do I feel fulfilled, satisfied? What's going to give my life some meaning, some satisfaction? Every single day you wake up in the morning, you say, Modeh Ani, thank you, God, for bringing my soul back into this world. But how do I know that I'll make that day purposeful and meaningful? Number one is when we do the right thing, there's nothing more satisfactory than knowing you did the right thing, regardless of the repercussion of it. If you gain materialistically and financially, I'm sure you're more than happy as well. But the knowledge and the satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing is the greatest satisfaction that a person can have. We live in a world today where this is taken for granted. Doing the right thing is not always the up-and-coming item on the list, on the to-do list. We even tell children sometimes in really not first place, but second place is just as good as first place. And we try to avoid teaching the reality of life, of knowing what is appropriate and what is sure, but know that you did the right thing. Sukkot is exactly that. You know, the Torah tells us about the festival of Sukkot. Not once, not twice, but 3 times we mention V'samachta, and you should rejoice. Sukkot, we have an obligation to rejoice. Sukkot, the Torah calls it the holiday, the festival of rejoicing. What are you so excited about? What are you rejoicing? That you're eating out in the cold and in the rain? What are you excited about? What are you rejoicing when it comes to Sukkot? But the Torah tells us and continues. What's another name for the holiday? The name of the holiday is gathering. when you gather all the crop that you work so hard in the field with, after a hard year of sweat, a hard year of sowing, plowing, planting, harvesting, you now finally come to the final step to bring it all into the house. But when do you really get to enjoy it? Not when you're sowing, not when you're plowing, not when you're harvesting, but when you get to see the profit, the labor, the work of your labor. When a person does that, he did the right thing. I planted correctly, I plowed correctly, I harvested correctly, and finally, here's my product to show. That's the greatest satisfaction one can have. That's the greatest pleasure one enjoys. That gives them the ability to get the strength to do it again next year. Sukkot tells us satisfaction in life is to continue to grow, to continue to create, to continue to bring new. Sukkot teaches us not just to give up on what we had in the past. Sukkot tells us that yes, at times I will have to give up on a certain craving, or at times I'll have to close my mouth before I say something and answer back, or at times I'm going to have to go out of my comfort zone to be able to help another person. But that's where I will find satisfaction. I will gather in all the good things I've done and see to it that I enjoy it and celebrate it. Now let's go back to our question. Our question was, what does it mean the Jews didn't celebrate Sukkot until Ezra came and brought them back to the land of Israel? Think of it this way. The first 1,000 years the Jewish people were in the land of Israel, they had everything there. King David, King Solomon, King Saul, Samuel the prophet, they were all born into Judaism. They were all born into the precepts and ideas and the likeness of Judaism. They were all born in the land of Israel. They saw miracles happen in front of their eyes. There was no persecutions. Yes, they had dealings with the Palestinians, but there was always a judge, there was a king, there was somebody that was leading their way that they were able to accomplish. Sukkot, therefore, was part of their retinue of things that they had to do. They kept Sukkot. But what did it mean to them? Did they have the true rejoicing there? Only after the Jewish people returned after being exiled, once they paid a heavy price for their Judaism, when they realized that they were in Babylonia and in Persia, where there was assimilation and there was difficulties, and still in all they withstood it, and they were here to celebrate together the concept of Sukkot. Only then were they truly able to appreciate what Sukkot is all about. Only then did they have the true joy and celebration of what the Torah tells us Sukkot means: to gather, gathering yourself together, coming together, notwithstanding the challenges that you've been through. All of us today can somewhat speak to the concept of challenges, every person in their own way, whether it's a financial, whether it's loneliness at home, whether it's a crisis of health. All of us, unfortunately, have gone through months and continue to endure a level of an anxiety, of unknown. Sukkot is that moment where we can gather our strength together. Sukkot is that time where we say, you bring everything together. We have everything as one, and we become as one nation, standing together in front of God, saying, yes, I know it happened, but we've invested, we've planted, and now it's time to reap the benefit. This is the joy that we come together, that we look together and see the very fact that we're here today to celebrate gives us a reason to celebrate. The very fact that we have family and friends and people that we can help, and people that we can be there for, is a reason to celebrate. As the prophet tells us in Nehemiah, and it was a great joy, is a great wonder. Let us make sure in these trying times, as we approach Sukkot, do the right thing, and you will have the ultimate joy. God bless you for a wonderful day, and see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. All the best, and God bless, and let's hope we celebrate together in the great Sukkah that God will build for all of us with the coming of Mashiach. May it be now. Amen.